we'll do the live thing first. Like. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time listening, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, depending on where you're watching and where you're listening, please let everyone know and give us a good rating. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that notifications and subscribe to our channel and like the video. And if you ever wanted to reach out to the podcast for any reason, just to let us know a topic, or if there was anything you wanted to tell us about, hit us up on our DMs, either on our Twitter at the Bigmark Podcast or Instagram at the Bigmark Pod. And yeah, if you wanted to donate to the podcast, go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpodcast. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to talk about today's topic, which is Alexisonfire. It's a band that I've always really loved, and actually, I had the opportunity to see them recently. I got their shirt on right now, and they kind of have a really cool story. And like I said, they're a band that's really near and dear to my heart for sure. If you've never heard of the band, they're a Canadian post-hardcore band, and they were formed in St. Catharines, Ontario, not too far away from Hamilton, where I am right now. They were formed in 2001. They're kind of like in like the emo, kind of like screamo, like I said, post-hardcore genre. And I remember when I was listening to them. So, I guess when their first album came out, I would have been about 11 years old. So, I was probably 12 maybe or 13 when I first started really getting into them. And, I remember my grandma, who was still alive, my machita, would listen, and she called it devil music. So again, she didn't know what was going on, and it was like really heavy, especially compared to anything I was listening up until then. But again, it was a really interesting kind of foray into that zone. I'll go into a little bit more of their kind of what made them special. But their members were George Pettit, who was their lead, or one of the lead vocalists kind of things. He was able to scream with his voice, and he was kind of one half of the lead vocal job. The other half was Dallas Green, and he kind of provided more of a nice, like, melodic kind of more pretty sounding voice, especially juxtaposed against George's. Dallas also played guitar and some keyboards, and Wade McNeil played guitar and vocals, and Wade was kind of in between George and Dallas when he sang. Chris Steele on bass, and currently it's Jordan Hastings on drums. And the original drummer was Jesse Engelvich probably. So in 2001 when they formed, it basically kind of came out of a three band breakup. So George was in a band, and Dallas was in a separate band, and their bands kind of broke up. And then Wade and Chris were also in a band together, and they were kind of thinking, hey, like, we want to keep doing this. Let's all form like Voltron here. And then they found Jesse, and they put the band together. They named the band after the porn star and stripper Alexisonfire. And I guess a story I heard once is when she was being like introduced at a strip club or wherever, and the band was watching, they introduced her as Alexisonfire. And it's a really cool band name. I guess Alexisonfire kind of came at the band, but she didn't have any legal recourse, which is really interesting. The band themselves, they actually described the music as the sound of two Catholic high school girls in a knife fight, which is funny because that's actually the cover of their first album. And it features a couple of Catholic school girls from the local high school, Dennis Morris. Shout out Dennis Morris, and all of its alumni out there. that was the uniform, and it was where Dallas Green went, and they used those two girls as models for the cover of their album, and one girl's holding a knife. It's a really, really good album cover. Really simple, but it's effective. Like I said, that sound with Dallas and George there, and Wade kind of right in the middle there was always really intriguing to me. And again, it creates that interesting juxtaposition. If you've ever heard the band July Talk, they've kind of, with a really nice feminine voice and then the super gravelly male voice, it's an interesting, again, the juxtaposition is there. And musically, kind of what the guys kind of get away with is there's a lot of this like call and answer effect. And again, it's depending on who's listening to it, it's kind of hard to understand the screamo lyrics sometimes. And it's nice to have something that you can kind of also sing along to, that you can kind of understand a little bit more. And the way Dallas sang and the way it sat in the mix, it just kind of like, again, added that extra level kind of beauty. And the really cool way of looking at it is that, and when I was at the show recently, I felt it. There's this wall, this noise, this amazing sound and fury and everything that comes from the band and the drums and the bass and guitar and the heavy, loud music. And then George singing crazy and Wade going off, and then having Dallas's kind of vocals just kind of float through the mix and just kind of like fill in those spots. And it's almost like this like ray of light and hope amongst, the thorns or whatever, the rose amongst the thorns, if you will. Again, I think that's what made them really special. Especially having kind of three singers like that. I was also a big fan of Protest the Hero, which was kind of one of their contemporaries. And their lead singer was able to kind of actually do both, which was actually really cool. He could scream and kind of sing melodically. Actually, when I guess I was 17 at the time, underage, but I didn't drink, I promise. Anyway, hopefully the statute of limitations is up on this, and I apologize to anyone, but I'm telling it. So I was playing Hamilton Hurricanes football at the time. I was like I said, 17, and all my teammates were like 22. A couple of them were actually attending McMaster's. Shout out Greg and Chase. What's up, boys? And we were going to go see a Protest the Hero show. Tremendous. Everyone loved Protest. It was, on rotation. Well, I don't even know if we got to play it pregame, but there was times where we all were listening to it, and they were coming to Hamilton. They were playing at Mac, actually in, I guess it'd be 1280 or whatever, their downstairs John, whatever it was called, like the basement bar there on campus. And we go and we realize, fuck, it's not an all ages show. It's 19 plus. So I'm going, fuck. And again, it's me. It's not like it's like some little kid, like, as long as I have some kind of ID, I'm in, but they're checking everybody's ID. But one of my buddies, Chase, he had his student ID too for Mac. So he used that, I believe. And then I think I took his like health card or something, right? So basically we're in line. He passes it to me from behind. I get up right up to the line. I go, oh shit, I think I forgot my ID. I'm just going to go run back to my house. I pretended like I lived in the neighborhood. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go back to my place and just go grab my ID. Shit, I forgot. Okay, cool. So I literally went and like, jogged in a circle, went and like splashed some water on my face, waited. I was like, oh, okay, I think it's been about long enough, and pretending like I lived close. And then I ran up into the line. There wasn't really anyone waiting in the line at that point. And I ran up and I pretended like I was out of breath. So I handed him the ID, and then I bent over over my knees, like I was out of breath. So he couldn't actually really like look at my face. And then he was like, right on, here you go. Here's your ID. And I walk in, and literally as soon as I turn the corner, the band started playing, and it was fucking awesome. And that was a really good show. But like I said, Protest, and actually I'll get into this later, because Protest the Hero put on such a fucking good show that night, and their bass player was really, really entertaining. Amongst other bands, Alexisonfire was a very large influence on that Canadian post-hardcore scene, obviously with Billy Talent too. And I actually saw them recently at the Born and Raised show in St. Catharines, which is where they're from, and Billy Talent was playing with Alexisonfire. And it's funny because when Alexisonfire released their first self-titled album in 2002, their first tour ever was with Billy Talent. And they mentioned that during the show, and it was super cool. And fuck, Billy Talent put on such an awesome show. Jordan Hastings, like I mentioned, who's the current drummer for Alexis, he is also the drummer for Billy Talent. And I knew this going to the show. I'm thinking, who the fuck is he's gonna do two shows. This drummer is gonna play two shows, and like they were playing 2 nights back to back too. And I'm thinking, no way, this guy's gonna pass out. So I get to the show, and Billy Talent's already playing. I'm looking at the drummer, and it's fucking Lowell Campbell, the drummer of Winter Sleep, who is legitimately my favorite drummer, currently Canadian drummer alive. Like even like any, honestly, I think he's my favorite drummer, period. He's so good. I don't know if he's the best, but I love his style, and I've always loved him in Winter Sleep since I saw him as a little kid. And he did a great job with Billy Talent. The rest of the band was fantastic too. But yeah, Billy Talent's original drummer has MS, so they've had to find a new drummer. But it was really cool that Lowell stepped in, and it's awesome that other bands are recognizing his skill, because he is fantastic. Shout out Lowell. But again, yeah, so Alexisonfire, they actually... that's their self-titled album, Alexisonfire. Tremendous, came out in 2002. They actually played it front to back on the second night at that Born and Raised show in St. Catharines that I was at. 44 caliber Love Letter, just tremendous. Pulmonary Archery, another amazing song. Their other album, Watch Out, which came out in 2004, so a couple years later, was actually recorded at Silo Studios in Hamilton, Ontario. Accidents is an amazing song. Sidewalk When She Walks, and it was actually really interesting. At one point, Alexisonfire and this other band from St. Catharines area, Niagara Falls, Monine, created this album called the Switcheroo series, where Monine did a couple Alexisonfire covers, and Alexisonfire did a couple Monine covers. And it was great because that's how I was introduced to Monine, number one. And also, it's funny because when Monine covered Accidents, which is, again, a tremendous song from the Watch Out album, the lead singer Monine just sang the lyrics that George usually screams. So that was a way that I could finally understand what George was actually saying. So really, really interesting thing that they did there. And Monine and Alexisonfire were really tight kind of their whole career, and they were playing with them in early shows, like in church basements and stuff in the early 2000s. Another 2 years later, they kind of on that an album every 2 years kind of schedule there. They came out with Crisis, which is kind of the album where I really fell in love with them. I really liked Watch Out, like the songs on there. It kind of got me hooked, but once Crisis came out, I really fell in love with them. And I was starting to get a little older. I was 15 when that came out, so I was starting to get a little older, and I was starting to understand it a little bit more. Rough Hands, a tremendous song, and then This Could Be Anywhere in the World. And if anyone knows and is an Alexisonfire fan, this is probably, I'd say probably one of their most like overall successful songs, like whatever, generally successful, mainstream, whatever, mainly because it had a fucking awesome video. So again, when I was watching a lot of this, or listening to this band, especially in 2006, Much Music was still a thing. And for anyone who doesn't know what Much Music is, it was a channel on basic cable that when it first came out, always played music videos. It started slowly becoming the kind of MTV of Canada and started playing like random shows and reality shows and contest things. But it started off with, like, again, VJs showing different videos. It was a radio station, essentially, with DJs, but they were VJs, video jockeys, showing new music. And again, that kind of came along with what it was going down in the States with MTV. And it was just it was a place to show all those videos. And, it was really, it's not that it's not an important thing now. It's still really important to have cool videos, and people are doing lyric videos now. But content has kind of changed a little bit. But back in the day, it was vital to have a music video with your album. That was kind of how people listened to it. And This Could Be Anywhere in the World was a fucking super sick video. And it came out, and I think I remember either somehow stumbling upon, like, actually watching the premiere of it or something. But I remember still the first time I was watching it, it has just such a cool start. It's like the band it's like raining on the band, so they're like fucking soaked, but they're playing their instruments, and there's like, at one point, like, George is like rising up from underwater, and just like the cinematography of it is really, really cool. And the song is fantastic. Again, the song is really good. It's that, I think, where the band kind of in crisis. I think the whole album really is their peak of the balance of the super heavy with the nice, wonderfully melodic kind of beauty aspect of what Dallas does. Another 2 years later, they came in 2008. They came out with Old Crows, Young Cardinals, which is another great album, really interesting. Again, a little bit more of a mature album coming from the boys. Young Cardinals, the title track was very good, and they also had another song on there called Emerald Street, which was always kind of near and dear to my heart because it's an homage to Emerald Street, which is a street in Hamilton, Ontario, which, how do I put this lightly? It's known for its working ladies. It's known for, there's a couple cat on a hot tin roof, if you know what I mean. It's a little bit more of a, hey, how you doing? The lyric in the song is, all the boys in the halfway houses wave to the girls of Emerald Street. And that's a big hook in the song, and it's poignant. But again, like I said, very Hamilton and a really cool feel. Their bass player, Chris Steele, is from Hamilton, I believe, lived here at least, and George Pettit lived here for some time, or still does. And again, Hamilton's a gritty city, man. It's got its ups and downs, and it's got its underbelly, like any small to medium sized city. We only have about 520,000 people, so we're not like fucking crazy huge, but we're on that weird, that borderline, obviously, between like a small town and a city. I mean, I think London, Ontario is around 400 or something like that. I can't remember, something like that. But again, it's pretty much considered a city too. So somewhere around like that 350,000 mark probably is the push. But again, Hamilton is quintessentially a city. And like I said, any city has its ups and downs, and I always liken Hamilton to kind of Canada's Pittsburgh, not only for our steel town vibes, but also because we kind of been shitty. The city of Hamilton was knocked down for most of my lifetime, and only for about the past 10 years or so it's had its comeuppance, so to speak. And I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to be here while it's going up, because the music scene in Hamilton is fantastic. Gord Downey actually said it's the best place to see live music in Canada. So, God bless. Also, another 2 years later, 2010, they dropped a really short EP called Dog's Blood. They had some covers on there one of them was by the Midnight Oil called The Dead Heart. And the Midnight Oil is a really interesting band. Pretty sure they're Australian, but they did Beds Burning, which is a really cool song, which I always got confused with the B-52s, because Midnight Oil also had a guy that sounded like this, like, come on down to the Love Shack. That voice, I guess, was a thing back then. And this dude from Midnight Oil, he kind of sang the same. And then they also had like the backup singers too. But the Beds Burning is a fucking really, really good song. And Alexis kind of attacked it too. Now, right before Crisis came out, if we can kind of backtrack a little bit to 2005, that's when Dallas Green started his solo project, City in Color, which is fantastic. Shout out to my brother Benny. Had a great weekend with him this weekend, and he's a big City in Color fan, and we've always bonded over them. And again, they're really, it's a cool thing to see Dallas do that, because he did everything with Alexis, and it seemed like he needed a different kind of outlet with City in Color to kind of explore some kind of other genres. And I can very much understand where he's coming from, because doing this whole new folk thing with Reckless Harbor, go check us out on Instagram. Reckless Harbor is the new band I'm currently with, and we're phenomenal. And everything's been phenomenal, and I've been loving it, and I think our music's great. So go check it out. We're gonna keep playing, and we're gonna hopefully be playing some more shows coming up soon. But it's a really cool kind of more traditional folk thing, and it's a nice departure, and it kind of gives me a little bit of a different way to express myself, which I'm assuming what Dallas was kind of doing with City in Color. And of course, not to point out the obvious, but his name is Dallas Green, and they're called City in Color, Dallas Green. The project, obviously very successful. City in Color's, released a handful of albums now. And their whole career is worthy of a separate podcast. But kind of between the success of City in Color and Alexisonfire, Dallas said he suffered from a nervous breakdown and was suffering from the stress. And he said, Alexis was killing him. And, so by, August 5th, 2011, the band officially announced their breakup. Which was a super bummer. George Pettit described the breakup as not amicable at all. And soon afterwards, in 2012, the band announced they're doing a farewell tour. And up until that point, as much as I was an Alexisonfire fan, I had never had a chance to see them. And it was a super bummer. And as soon as I heard that they're breaking up, I was leaping at the chance to go see them. And it just so happened that on December 30th, 2012, the last day of the farewell tour, the show was actually going to be held at Copps Coliseum in Hamilton, Ontario. Now it is First Ontario Centre, but Copps Coliseum, as it will always affectionately be known, was near and dear to any Hamiltonian's heart, but mine included. So I grabbed tickets to that, and I went with my buddy Mark. I went with my buddy Lep and Jordan and his brother. And my buddy Lep, shout out Lep, was a fan from day one, had seen them a bunch of times, like I said, in church basements, like getting after it, early days, and they were loving it. I had just had shoulder surgery, I think I want to say it would have been like at the beginning of December. I had my second shoulder operation, so I was in a sling, so I wasn't going into the pit, but Lep and the boys were going in, and our buddy Jordy, his brother, came back with two different shoes from the pit, so it was really cool. But honestly, it was a life-changing show. I was on the floor, which was tremendous, but watching those guys play their last show, knowing that it was their last show. They fucking played their heart out, man. And, you know, I've mentioned it before, and it's my, you know, Bill Hicks, where I really feel connected to Bill Hicks too. Play from your heart. And they played from their fucking heart, man. Every single guy there left every ounce of whatever they had in them on that fucking stage. Blood, sweat, tears, you name it. George singing his guts out. Dallas killing it. Fucking Wade McNeil just blowing his voice to smithereens. Hastings killing it on the drums. And Chris Steele, man, like, fuck. He was fantastic. And he's their bass player, and a lot of bands, their bass player just kind of sits there and nods his head and does his thing, and it's great. And, you know, they could be fantastic. And one of my favorite players of all time, Pino Palladino, he's the master of the head nod. But Protest the Hero included, and Alexisonfire with Chris Steele, these guys fucking steal the show, man. They're fantastic, energetic, all over the show, just playing to the crowd, really just making things happen. Like, it just opened my mind to how you can entertain someone that way. And it's by fucking giving you 110,000%. And people latch onto that, and people see that, and people feel that. When you're that fucking passionate about something, it's special. And it was really, really, really special to me. We all got like a stamp to come into onto the floor, and I was fucking this close to getting my first tattoo, and I was just gonna get them to fucking tattoo like right over the stamp. Glad I didn't, because in 2019 the band started doing shows again in Australia. So they started their reunion, and in March 10th, 2022, they released their most recent album, Otherness, which is where this shirt comes from. Really cool album. I love the new songs. They're like, it's like really hard City and Color songs almost, but also good classic Dallas, good classic Alexisonfire kind of Crisis, where you get that good balance of the heavy and the light. But, you know, like I said, to really kind of put a cap on everything here, what Chris Steele did that day in 2012 was totally reignited when I saw them at that Born and Raised tour. He was just as fucking energetic, and he was just getting after it just as much. And it was really, really special. And in fact, shout out Julian, I don't know if you're listening, but I was really inspired, because as much as I love Reckless Harbor and I can't wait to be playing shows more, thank God I'm able to sing with these guys, so I'm a little bit more tethered to a microphone. So I can't really run around and sprint like I'd like. So me and Jules are my buddy from work, he was at the show too. We're gonna probably start our own kind of hardcore band, which will be fucking super cool. And again, like I said, if you can find someone, and I was lucky to see fucking Lowell Campbell and Chris Steele on the same night, two guys that when I watch them, they're guys that you watch and it appears like there's no one else on the fucking stage. They capture your attention, and they capture whatever magic and passion you can feel from music. These guys capture it, bottle it, and fucking send it right back. And it's something that's really special, and I'm privileged to ever do it. And I think if there's anything I can ever say about music and about musicians, is try and find someone who influences you. Whatever that is, whatever band you love, try and find who those band members are, because we live in this world where people are on Instagram, you see them all over the place. There's influencers out there, right? It's a real thing. It's one of those things where if you can, if you can find who not only influences you, but who influences those people, and you can go deeper and you can go find them back in history. But if you can also find someone who influences how you want to be on stage, this goes for any artist or anything, that it doesn't have to be on stage, how you want to be in the public eye, whether it's visual art or anything else. You get to choose how you want to be. And if you don't know where to start, you can go and find those people who influence you and fucking copy them, man. Just take little pieces from all those different people and put them together. And whatever you do, however you do it, that's going to be you. That's going to be your new shine. Don't feel like you're like, oh, I'm ripping people off. No, man. Good artists create, great artists steal. And the idea is you take what is out there, you put it together, you make it better. And then the next person's going to take some of that and it's going to put it together and it's going to make it better. And we're going to just keep growing and achieving new things as a species and a culture. And I think that's what it's all about, is you got to go out there, get your influences down. Because maybe that's the thing, is that you might not even know where to start. But if you go find out your influences and find out how they went and started. Because like I said, we live in a world where there's a lot of information out there about these people. And even if there isn't, someone wrote a book, or it's somewhere, check an album cover, look in the liner notes. The information is out there. And if you go and seek it, and if you go and find it, you'll be amazed at how much you can learn about your artists that you've loved, and how much more you can appreciate their music and appreciate what they can do. I'm super happy and I'm super excited that I was able to see those guys, and I was reminiscing about this, and I'm so happy my shirt came in. So I thought I'd lay a little Alexis knowledge on y'all. Again, get out there. Go listen to some Alexis. Go listen to that new album, Otherness. If there's anything that any cool stories about Alexis, please let me know. Check us out on our DM. If you want to reach me at the Bigmark Podcast on Twitter, or at the Bigmark Pod on Instagram. If you want to give anything out to the podcast, like I said, to help keep the lights on, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. If you like the podcast, please rate us 5 stars. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it really means a lot to us. And again, tell a friend. If you tell one friend, we'll double the podcast audience overnight. Thank you guys so much. This has been a 44 caliber podcast straight from my heart. Peace.